In this part of the lesson, we're going to talk about constructing equations based on an original truth value. So if we know that w equals 16 is the truth value of this variable, we want to begin by constructing what would be an equivalent equation, an expression on each side, if we add something. So let's just suppose we have a number and we want to add 2. So in the event that we're going to add 2, maintaining the truth value that w will always equal 16, we have to fill in this box indicating what that would be based on this idea of adding 2. So sometimes we might just think, well, w equals 18 would be correct. However, we've lost the truth value of w equals 16. So w equals 18 would not be correct in this case. Although we're adding 2, but remember we always need to keep the truth value of w equals 16. So instead, it's not w equals 18, but w plus 2 would equal 18. In some cases, we could think of it also as w plus 2 equals 16 plus 2. But we like to always keep this side simplified as much as possible just for the sake of keeping it nice and clean. So now let's pick another number. Let's suppose we want to pick -3. So this time we're going to multiply by the value of -3, keeping now this equation. We still know that w equals 16 is true. So this new statement, we want to multiply by -3. So in this case, we're going to take this entire side, the w equals, or w plus 2, multiply it by -3, and that -3 times -18 is going to give us -54. So let's continue on. So we created this new equation based on an addition and a multiplication of two different values. So let's go back to this w equals 16. Let's say we want to multiply first. So let's pick another number of, let's say, 5 this time. If I'm going to multiply by 5, the truth statement of w equals 16, I'm going to end up with not just w equals 80, but we had to multiply the 5w, and that's going to equal the 5 times 16, which is 80. Okay, so multiplying by 5, we end up maintaining this truth statement of w equals 16. We haven't lost the w equals 16 here. Okay, so now if we pick another number, let's say 4, I want to now subtract 4. So my new equation, my new constructed equation would be 5w minus 4 equals 80 minus 4, or 76. So we have a new equation comprised of a subtraction process and a multiplication process. And we multiplied first, indicated here by the 5, and then we subtracted 4, which gave us this new equation that still maintains the truth value of w equals 16. Now let's look at this side. Again, this time we're going to do a subtraction, and then we're going to do a division. So let's just subtract maybe 3. And so again, starting with w equals 16, we know that this is going to be now w minus 3, and that's going to equal the 16, but I subtracted 3 from that, so that's going to give us 13. And let's divide by 5. So in order to divide by 5, we don't want to look at it in terms of w divided by 5. These aren't individual pieces. This is how this was newly constructed. This expression was newly constructed. Now we want to divide by 5. I'm going to put it up here so we can see it a little more clearly. I'm going to divide that by 5. And on, instead of 13 over here, again, we divided by 5, and we just say 13 divided by 5. Again, it doesn't have to be simplified. We don't have to worry about this being a decimal value. 13 divided by 5 can be written as a terminating decimal, but just leaving it in terms of this is what was constructed based on the w minus 3 equals 13. And when we divide it by 5, this is our new equation. And then lastly, we can do one more, again starting with w equals 16. Perhaps we want to divide by 2. And when we divide by 2, we're going to take w divided by 2, and this equals 8. And let's add 4. And w divided by 2 plus 4 will equal 12. Okay, one last thing I just want to point out over here. Notice that when we multiplied by -3, we didn't do any kind of distribution because that changes the construction of this, or what the story is actually saying, because we're talking about -3 being multiplied by this entire expression on this side. So we leave it in terms of parentheses, the -3 times the quantity of w plus 2, or -3 times this sum. Let's look at page 2 now. If you flip over, we are given this equation x minus 3, the whole thing divided by 2 equals 4. And so now we want to look at, without solving for x, we don't want to do anything. We want to determine the value of the following expressions, so these ones down here, by examining the changes that occurred. And then we also want to state whatever operations occurred. So if we notice here, this is the difference of whatever was going on here. So we notice we don't have the sum of 5 here. So we know that this change was an addition of 5. And so if we add 5, the change that was done between the original to the new in part A was an addition of 5. Now we know that this expression will now be worth 5 more than what it was up here, and so this would be now worth 9. Likewise, if we look over at this one over here, letter D, we notice the difference between the original is this multiplication of 3. And so we're going to say that we multiplied by 3, and so the resulting fact that if we multiply by 3, if we change this original equation by multiplying or by a factor of 3, that means the result would also change by 3, and our new value for the expression would be 12.